Just double click on it.
Hello, I'm Amrita Rajpal. I've been teaching for 22 years, but I've been learning my whole life, and that's why I have a company called Edu Learn Grow. I'm a sports nutritionist. I'm an average traveler, and I'm an active Rotarian. I'm also the territory head for the Early Childhood Association Mumbai. I'm founder Edu Learn Grow and co-founder the ABCD Show.
Hi, I'm Bela Kotwani, also known as Big B. Big for the size of my heart and B for Bela. A fun-loving person with a great sense of humor and a passionate pickleball player. National Core Committee member of Early Childhood Association, founder and principal of Cosmic Kids International, co-founder Puppet Maestros, and co-founder the ABCD Show. The ABCD Show is a show where everything concerned with children is addressed.
We're going to get in eminent experts whose opinions matter. We're going to introduce you to new products. We're going to have theories unfold into practice. We'll discuss mental health and wellness. We'll look at best practices. We'll give you parenting tips, and we'll explore tools and strategies to help you teach.
So, if you are a preschool coordinator, parent, teacher, or anyone who has anything to do with children, this show is for you.
So don't forget to like our page to know more about our upcoming events.
We still have people coming in. Welcome everybody. Welcome to the ABCD show. Thank you for being over here and being with all our experts. I also want to now welcome Neelu. Neelu, let me introduce you to the people who don't know you. So Neelu Kalro is a compassionate and passionate educator with a strong belief in skill development for life and child at the center of education since the past 2 decades. She is the Deputy Principal Primary at JBCN International School, Parel. She humbly holds the position of Territory Head, ECA Mumbai. She has completed training in early years and primary education from IPC USA and CICTL from Cambridge University. She is an early years parenting expert and advocates joyous childhood and education. So Neelu, welcome.
Welcome, Neelu, to the ABCD show.
Neelu, I want to say some more things about you, which I know. All right. So this was a formal introduction about what you do. But Neelu and I are both territory heads in the ECA, and we've interacted a lot. So one thing I can vouch for Neelu is that not only does she talk, but she also knows how to walk the talk. So Neelu, policy into practice is something which was very well chosen for you, because we know you just do what you say and make sure that it's the right practice. So
thank you. Before you go,
what I like about Neelu is you're very, very passionate about what you do. I love that about you, Neelu.
Neelu, I also want to tell the viewers out here that Neelu is on the advisory board of Edu Learn Grow. And when someone is on the advisory board, it means that you want to take their advice. So she is an expert, and we are very, very happy to have her here. So welcome,
to both of you. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for all our viewers. It's always a pleasure to be at a platform where there are such open engagements and interactions. And yes, that is what this is going to be. Amrita, Bela, as we always do. Thank you for the warm introduction.
You're welcome. And everyone wants to know about this. So, you know, when we're talking about mindfulness, I was talking to someone the other day, and she told me, you know, we practice mindfulness in our school. And when children are eating, we tell them, you know, to observe what they're eating and, you know, to see what what is on the table and what's around. And so we are very mindful and we're doing mindfulness. And this topic was chosen because of that. Because I said people have such a limited view about mindfulness. And mindfulness is something which is so broad and so big and can be taken in so many different, in all different areas of life, and skills. So, Neelu, I want you to elaborate on mindfulness and what does mindfulness really mean and how big is this whole spectrum?
Thank you. That's a very, very pertinent question, firstly. It's an oft-used term. Of late, you hear everyone using the terminology, talking about that cliche word that is mindfulness. And you're very right. What your friend told you is one aspect of it, how being applied in real life. Because if you ask me, which you just did, to me, mindfulness is nothing but a way of life. It's a way of life where you're in a complete state of alert. You are alert, you're calm, yet you're into a focused relaxation. Exactly what you said, being mindful when you're eating. So people apply that to different perspectives, different aspects of their life. Maybe they are mindful when they are working. They, do not want to multitask. They want to focus and be mindful about that one thing that they're doing. But all in all, it's a state of alert, yet focused relaxation. Also, mindfulness for me is a state where you are giving complete attention to the now. You are in the now of the moment, in the present moment completely. This happens to all of us, right? I'm sitting talking here to you, but my mind is moving to 10 different directions. I may be physically pleasant, but mentally I have traveled places. I have conversed with people and I've, worked on my own self-talk and thoughts. So to me, it means being in the moment, being in the now, in a place where I'm giving complete attention to my thoughts, to various sensations that are arising within me because of something that is happening outside of me, right? And there are so many things which are those distractions which just keep coming with asking me. You're viewing it, you are seeing it, you're aware of it, but you choose when and how is it that you're going to react or rather respond. It's without a judgment.
Neelu, I think there's some disturbance at your end. Your network is showing its bandwidth is low.
Are you able to hear me now?
We can hear you, but
Are you able
at
to
times,
hear me?
But you're frozen, Neelu.
yeah.
Okay. It's showing complete to me. So I hope I'm clear when I'm talking about this. Anything that you all have missed out, would you like me to touch upon something again?
No, not really.
Can you repeat the last sentence so that we have a connect?
So it's being in the now, being in the moment and controlling and knowing when you mindfully want to react to anything around you or respond. It's not just wide spectrum. It's not that little speck that's there to be picked up and put in. It's a wide umbrella.
Neelu, we are losing you.
Try putting your video off and
Is
only the audio. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah.
Okay. With that? Yes. Is that better? Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So summarizing the question that you asked me, Amrita, it's being in the now, being in the moment, and then deciding how is it that you're going to respond or, put through what is it that you have in your mind. Basically, it's a life skill.
True, absolutely. Being now, being present. So whether you're eating, whether you're doing anything.
So Neelu, do you feel we should add this consciously in a curriculum for the children, or how do you feel we should, or it'll just happen, by the way, kids will learn about mindfulness?
Leela, I love that question. I love that question because you have opened up a thought which is a raging debate, okay, which has been a raging debate, not just now, quite some time back, wherein we talk about intentional learning and incidental learning, right? So we as educators or we as parents, because even parents work a lot with that, there's a total homeschool partnership. So when we're talking about this, something as important as building this life skill and being mindful, do we leave it as an incidental learning or do we take it up as an intentional learning? Right, Bela? That's where you're heading?
Yes.
Right. So my thought to it is that when you believe something has that, it's going to bring that change into your life and probably allow you to have a state of well-being, to live your life in a better and a more quality way, why not focus on it and why not watch it grow? Because eventually whatever you focus on, whatever you nurture is what gets enhanced. So in my opinion, rather than leaving mindfulness or rather than, leaving those strategies,
Neelu, again, we've lost you, Neelu. We can't hear you, Neelu.
by the way हो जाएगा, we do this in school इसलिए mindful हो जाएगा, we as parents do this practice at home so our children will have those skills. I'd rather focus on it. If we have curriculum by design, why not build in these skills and mindfulness by design? So I hope I've answered your question there.
Yes, sounds good, Neelu. I really feel it should be added in the curriculum. It's need of the hour. It's very, very important, and you've made a very valid point there.
Yes, absolutely. It's something which is the need of the hour and should be there. Having said that, it is the need of the hour. That slot is 3.5 hours and everything has to be finished over there. How much time should we give to this in school? Should it be scheduled? Should it just happen? Just the teachers need to have the culture so it just happens. By the way, should it be an everyday practice? Should it be put 2-3 times a week? What should be done? How should this be incorporated?
Amrita, very pertinent questions, and this is something I always dwell on because our teachers are the busiest people. They are the busiest bees in this universe, more so now. So beautifully, they have upskilled themselves, and risen to the occasion, opened up their homes for us, only so that education continues. So, keeping in mind the points that you have raised, because that's something that comes to my mind also, being an educator and leading a team, you're always worried as to there are so many things that need to be completed. You have the entire how of the curriculum, you have the why and what of the curriculum, and add to it the other skills that we are looking at. But that means we are looking at everything in a space where it is broken, where it is fragmented. Why do we need to look at it that way? Let's look at it as a shared responsibility. Let us look at fostering the skills of mindfulness in a manner where teachers, parents, educators, every person in the school believes in that culture, right? So it begins right from there, where it's just not a session or a period within your day which needs to be covered and a certain time allotted to it, but it's something that you're breeding, that you're fostering, and you're bringing it to life. Having said that, I feel this is something which needs to be as a part of a daily session plan or a daily plan or a timetable which happens through the day. 15 minutes, 20 minutes is a beautiful time frame. 15-20 minutes is the ideal time. We're talking about young learners here, right? We're talking about parents who may be sitting with them playing various games, teachers who have that, an amount of curriculum to be completed. But that time together, maybe an early morning slot where when they come in and you're having your circle time, that is where you open up with those leading questions, with those probing questions, with your various strategies that you've already planned. So it's intentional that, this is something I observed. I'm going to put this in front of my children and allow them to have a dialogue and a discussion. That opens up your mind to a lot of it, and then have a calming down activity at the end of it. So it has to be something which is planned into the timetable, Amrita, to answer your question, which is into the time frame, and teachers know that within this time, you're not talking mindfulness, right? The terminology is not something children understand. You are doing or creating an environment which makes it conducive for them to allow those interactions to happen. So this is how I would see it. Can I touch a little more upon these bits that are there?
Please.
Let's talk about age groups now, right? A 3-year-old. What does a 3-year-old understand about mindfulness? For the child, he has to play, he has to enjoy, he has to have fun. And by that is where learning is happening. So why not get this into the time frame? If you're having those 15-20 minutes where you're engaging with such children, first set your rules that, we're going to respect perspectives here. I'm going to put forth this puppet in front of you, and this is what happened the other day. Start with a story. Tell them about it. Ask your children questions. What did you see in this story? You'll have immediate answers coming out. You may have children saying, but he did this also, and yesterday also he did the same thing. There are various connections they make. Get your child back to talking about, yeah, but what is it you just saw? Can you tell me what exactly did you see? Get them to thinking that talk. Children will start communicating, understanding what you're saying forth and putting it in that manner. From there, move to the idea of then a further discussion. Probably a 3-year-old may not be able to give you the answers. Sometimes the answers initially have to come from the facilitator. But once your child gets the hang of what's being asked and what's the answer that came and what is expected of me, it's a comfortable, secure space for them. You will find them opening up. And I'm telling you this by experience. This is something I've already done in a class. So those children will turn and tell you, okay, I'm not going to think what happened ahead, miss. I'm going to tell you what I can see right now. I saw Neelu pulling Amrita's toy. I noticed that Bela tried to stop her. I observed that we could all have, our different time. So this is where various terminologies, communication is coming forth. Open this question to a 4 or a 5-year-old and ask the next in line. You saw this. What do you think happened there? You'll find different answers coming forth. I think Bela was trying to pull that toy from Amrita. At the same time, Neelu reminded her it's my turn, but then by then they had both, broken up and taken the toy away. So this is where they first learn to see without judgment, without arriving at any solution or without giving a reaction. Children jump in, when this is happening, you may see an Amrita or a Bela standing and telling each other, hey, give back to me. This is my best friend's toy. They will learn to observe without being judgmental and without giving out a reaction. And when it's time, they will respond. That doesn't mean we are asking them to dull responses. We are only asking them that when the time is right, act and give in your response. Does that make sense to what I'm saying?
Totally.
Totally. Because I think now children are aware and they're not judgmental. So they're not involved and they're seeing it from a viewer's point. I think, these are skills that adults need to learn also. So it's not only children, and it's wonderful if they get this head start to learn it as a child.
And Amrita, as I touched upon the fact, it's building of a culture. We cannot just begin this or do this in the classroom in those 15 minutes or through the day. Probably the teacher is into the culture and she's able to make those connections. And before they leave for the day, she's again able to have that 5 to 10 minutes sit down time and tell them, what are the things that you think, which we achieved today? What is it that stuck with you today? Is there any thought that you're taking back? That's not the end. When the child goes home, how is it that we're bringing parents into the culture? So as I said, it's a shared responsibility. It takes a village to raise a child. It's not just one isolated individual. And by that, what happens is when you encourage and embrace and ask your parents to get into the fold, that's where it's truly a shared responsibility. I have one question which I'm going to put forth to both of you. Do you think what I'm saying is achievable if the right training, orientation, understanding and induction is not given to all the stakeholders?
It's not given.
I don't think so at all. I think this, for this kind of, to have an effect which reaches out from the parents and the teachers to the child, I think having this far-reaching effect needs to involve all the stakeholders. Absolutely. And I think they have to be trained.
Absolutely. And training in what? Training in a mindset. People come with a lot of baggage. We have teachers who come from different spheres, different experiences that we all get into the frame, right? We didn't start where we are today. It took us time to reach here. Today, what I am, or today, what each one of you is a bit of what we've learned from our mentors, from co-colleagues we have come across. And that's how our entire personality and makeup has come in. It's the same with our teachers and our parents. So the moment you open up the dialogue with the parents, this is something that we choose to nurture, we choose to focus on, and we invite your partnership to be with us. So maybe an initial workshop or an induction on what is mindfulness. What are the examples of mindfulness that you find in your very home? Do you have siblings? Do you see a conflict happening? Do you feel that your child needs to sit down and concentrate? How do you foster these skills? we talk about young learners, we're talking about our learners of 3 to 6 years or maybe up to 8 years, we talk about self-awareness. Being aware that what am I feeling right now? I'm a little upset because something happened. Do I need to react? I'll wait. I'll watch a bit. So these are all quick things. I'm talking about it, but these are very quick reactions that come in and thoughts that come in. Children learn to rationalize. They learn to have their own self-talk and then do it. Imagine a parent guiding and role modeling this behavior at home, right? Because the biggest thing that you can do when you're teaching or trying to foster and nurture something is to model that behavior, and your children are picking it up. So imagine a parent doing this at home, the same beautiful discussion coming to school, and this is followed at by the facilitator, the next mother or the parent of the child. Children listen to their teachers like there's nobody else. Teacher has said this, hence it's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's the beauty, right?
Teacher is
when
God for them.
Yes, it's a voice of God.
Yes, Bela. In my entire experience, very often I've had parents telling me, Miss, please tell your teacher to say this to my child and that's going to work. I had to, of course, unlearn and take that session with the parent for 20 minutes telling him, okay, how will you also work on it?
Right.
So that your child is receptive to what's being said. But that's the beauty. So why not a parenting workshop? Why not a workshop post that with your teachers, or maybe prior that with your teachers, where you are talking to your teachers and inducting and orienting them to the process? They also have a mindset. It's time to break those mindsets. It's time to break those boundaries of subject matter. It's time to understand that the whole child is coming to you. They are not coming in parts. So you cannot have social skills being fostered at this particular time in a day, a physical skill being fostered right now. There are multiple developments happening together, multiple intelligences at play together. If I quote the MI theory, by Howard Gardner. So what happens here is they learn a lot of self-management, likewise regulation skills, which teaches them to kind of have their boundaries, concentrate, and then take it further. So we have the why we got to do it, we have the how we can do it, we also have the what can be done. So we're going to talk about strategies in a bit, but yes, that is it for now.
But before that, I want to reiterate now what you said was we're starting from the age of 3, or we're starting earlier.
So for a parent, modeling the mindfulness begins right, I would say, from the womb. That's what it is. And that's where you're learning to have those conversations. When your child is with you, post that, being mindful in your speech, in your eating, in your patterns of behavior is exactly where it begins. And when they come to school, it becomes our responsibility. We're sharing that with them, right? So if your child is coming to school at the age of 3, exactly there is where we need to begin. So maybe your initial introduction or orientation with the parent.
Yes.
Can you share a few tips what teachers could do in school with their children, or what parents can do at home with their children? That will really help the audience.
Yes. Yes, I'd really love to do that, because when we're talking about embedding this into the curriculum by design, and we believe that mindfulness is for all, it's important that we have these strategies in place. So let's look at a few things. When we're playing Jenga blocks with our child, you're doing nothing but being mindful. If there are any parents in the audience, whenever you're doing a puzzle, whenever you're reading a book and you're moving at a pace where there's complete concentration, you're doing nothing but being mindful and teaching that bit to your child. Also, there could be exercises where maybe when you're right now, you can't move outdoors. Probably you're at home and you're doing these exercises of like a mountain, put your head up, stand tall as a mountain, sway softly like the breeze, and stand tall as the mountain. Post that, what you could do is, okay, while you're standing tall as the mountain, lift your right leg up and hold it to the count of 4. Very slow, very silent instructions. Children follow it. Then next, tell them, I'm not repeating the instruction for the next leg. Put your leg down and follow the same instruction for the other one. Thoughts are completely moving to that one instruction because the child is concentrating. At the same time, we never set our children for failure, right? We always encourage them to do their best. So while you're doing that with your child, make sure that you're doing it with that child, right? Wait for the child to take the lead at a certain time. Also, a lemon and spoon game if you're playing at home, okay? Or balancing your glass of water on your tray and taking it there. Take it right there, put it there and bring it back. Play the game with your child. That's nothing but being mindful. You're working on concentration techniques. When you're giving them a plethora to paint or a canvas to paint, or maybe you receive task sheets from school, that's what you're doing. Okay, I used to do a lot with my child when she was young. When you're doing that, spreading out all of it together, allow the child to choose. Okay, pick up one or two that you want to do in the next 20 minutes. We'll stack the rest here later, and then we'll come back to it again. So these are very tiny things and very daily things that we're doing, which help to inculcate and build mindness. The beautiful part that a parent can do is open up a discussion. Okay, whenever there is something that is happening and you wish to talk to your child about it, open up a discussion. Why do you think this happened? What is it that can be done better? We rush to give answers. There's no hurry. Let them give the answers and let them say, okay, this is one option, second option, third option. Let them find their own way. So this is how you're fostering those skills of decision making with the child. You know, you're putting that for the child. If I talk about the IC game that I said, you could have a chart which you have on the, you know, on your bulletin board, or maybe a chart, or maybe on the floor if you want to write and say, what is it we see happening right now? Notice that. To a child who's in the age group of 4 or 5, what is it that you think is happening? How do you think it can change? So predictive interpretations. What do you think can happen? Finally, your 5 to 6 year old would even be able to tell you, I wonder how it could have been different if Amrita and Bela both had the same toy, right? So those questions are now going to come up. Now, coming to the higher age group, if you talk about, when I say higher, I'm talking about children who are 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe up to 8. Having said that, higher ability or higher thinking is a uniqueness of every learner, right? So maybe what your child can do at 3, some child can do earlier, or maybe they need some more time to do it. That's their unique pace, right? So it's not a benchmark thing, but see how what your child's responses, including teachers in the classroom. That's where you will address the differential statements and discussions. So when you're having a discussion, talk about emotions. Talk about what you feel. Maybe you could have a tray as a teacher with various smiley faces there. When this happened between, you know, this is a role play that we just did, and you observed certain things. You've told me this is what you saw. Now tell me, what did you feel? So pick up any smiley from the tray and show it to us and tell me what you felt about it, right? You're engaging them to talk about feelings and the right time to be able to express their feelings. Did you feel angry? Did you feel upset? You have a wide smile. What does that mean? What can you do now? What do you think are the things that we can do when we are feeling upset? So multiple options, multiple perspectives, which is why I said it takes time. A teacher who just has 5 minutes and we've told her, mindfulness karna hai, 5 minutes mein kar lo, kisi bhi time mein kar lo. Find your time during the day. How do you think she's going to do that? Okay. It's a technique. It requires that time. Maybe all your learners may not have a chance the same day. So then it's up to the teacher to make your tiny, you know, those notes and post-its that you have that, okay, tomorrow I need to reach out to Neelu, blah, blah, so that they answer these questions. So that's how it will be going.
You know, I liked your idea of the mini stickers, emotion stickers, and they pick it up. It's very, very nice. A child who's not able to communicate also can pick up a sticker and say what he feels like. I really love that idea. So, Neeru, but can any teacher teach mindfulness? I mean, how does it, or you select a few teachers to teach mindfulness? How do you go about with that?
So one thing that happens in most of our schools is, of course, we have a curriculum that's planned and the teacher is the first facilitator in the classroom, which is why we do so much in terms of professional development. There is a need for training and there is a need for repetitive training, you know, so that they keep upgrading and realize that this is an aha moment. I already do it in my classroom. That's how it is. But it's important that either as a school, you decide that all teachers will be undergoing, which is a must. Ideally, it has to be a culture. All have to undergo that induction, that orientation. You could, if that works for you, identify maybe grade wise or maybe your section specific, whether it's a pre-primary or a primary setup or however it is, where you identify 2-3 teachers who will be taking the lead. You can even have a repetitive response to this leave or a change. You could have 3 teachers doing it in one quarter. You could have another 3 leading it the other quarter. So which is why there are different perspectives, thought processes, and the newness coming in. Because it's a very dynamic situation, right? It can't be etched in stone. It is something which is dynamic. Sometimes as a teacher, when I have led this session, I realized how I could have done it in a better way. That's been my learning. That's been my reflection. Hence, I go back to what I do, and then I do, okay, tomorrow when I'll do it in a different way. So what I did 10 years is very different from what I'll do now. Support your teachers to have that time. Also, give them that confidence that it's okay. You realize later this can be done, put it into the system. So either you have the entire training with the teachers, or you identify 2 to 3 teachers who can take a lead in this. When we make session plans and lesson plans for our lessons, where we write down in very finer detail, okay, what's the objective, what are the skills, what are the assessments, what are the strategies, why not put something in mindfulness? So if there's a role play that's planned, and say me and Bela are teachers in the classroom, and we come dressed as something, and we've done it, involve your parent fraternity. You're on virtual schooling right now. Involve your parents to come dressed, and this is a tiny story. Could you play that for us? Then open up for questions. And that's where your discussion opens up. Your 3-year-old will also ask questions, and they do have opinions, right?
True, true.
Also, a strategy like turn to your friend. Very often, we don't need to have so much of teacher talk time. It's important that the STT is high. The student talk time is equally higher. They are shy. They may need to be encouraged. They may not not like to talk. But when you give them the opportunity, they may choose to exercise it. So it could be something simple as turn to your friend, share what is your thought, and your friend will share your thought. So different strategies coming to the fore. Props, different questioning boards that you have. Give the onus to the child. It's time now you raised a question. Who would like to raise a question? Would you like to ask a question to this group? And your ground rules need to be set, that you're going to respect the views of all your teacher, of the learners. Even if there is a parent in the background, you will take your turn to speak so that everybody has a chance. And if you have a thought, hold your thought. We'll come back to you. And do go back to that child.
It's so difficult for a child to hold his thought, but we have to try and make him.
No, but then
Training
you're
helps,
teaching
Bela.
self-regulation also.
Yes,
no?
yes, yes.
Yes,
Definitely.
and training helps. What I've realized is the way you, direct them to think is the way children start thinking. And they always opt, that becomes their coping skill. Also what they observe. Well, a parent or a teacher, you have to walk the talk, as you said, Amrita, and thank you for that. Because I'm a firm believer that till you don't practice, you should not be preaching, right? So if a teacher is telling that to a child, it's time she also followed the same thing, right? She also has to respect their views. She has to wait for her turn to speak. She has to use strategies where she says, okay, let's hold down, let's sit down. When I do this, or when I do this, it's a silent clap. Some strategies that you want to use with your learners. That's where your design happens and the entire mindfulness pulls through.
So, Neelu, are you saying that teachers have to be more mindful than the children?
They have to be.
It's
That's how
always
they will
been
teach
that
it to
way.
the children. Yeah.
Right. We've always been that way, and we're human. So we bring our own very, very unique perspectives. That's why our children love us. Very often you see children imitating the teacher, right? I have an example in my own house where my daughter, whenever she would come home, she would totally imitate the teacher. And that's a wake-up call to you to realize that whatever's happening to the doll at that point in time is what happened in the classroom. So how is it that they're dealing? I think teachers are very aware today. They're quite an aware lot. But yes, this would benefit our teachers too. If it is SEL and mindfulness for learners that we are fostering, it's our teaching fraternity that we need to look at. Also our parents. So as I said, it's a shared culture.
Yeah.
It's something that needs to come together.
It's a partnership together.
Yes, absolutely.
True.
So
So
we
are there
spoke
any
about-
questions for Neelu?
Please put your questions in the question answer box, everyone. So we can look at the question answer box.
So Rita Bose put something very beautifully here. It is the social interaction beyond the family that suffers.
Right.
But we will get to those times also. And I think what's happened is our children at least have us or maybe siblings or, those connects that are happening right now. And that's where it'll happen.
So Neelu, I have this question that you're saying that these few teachers need to be trained and whatever. But what about the parents? How do we train the parents in this whole thing?
So there are two thoughts to it, Amrita. Either we, that's something that a school is at a school call. I know a lot of parents, when I conduct these workshops, they sign up because they want to be a part of that training. They want to understand where this comes from and how is it that they can, upgrade themselves better. It could also be that the school they've identified a person who will take this as an in-house training, which happens regularly, because it's not something that can be done once and then forgotten and relegated. Ki chalo kar lenge, ho
Yeah.
jayega. Besides that, probably you could tie in with maybe somebody who's able to give you that kind of training, a workshop with your parents, a workshop with your teachers, a proper curriculum training program where they understand that, and the understanding is clear that what is it that you're going to do with the starter or the icebreaker? How are you going to work around that? What are the next 3 questions that you will use, which are your leading questions? How will you close this tiny inquiry that you got into? Right? How will you follow this up with a task sheet, probably give a home play at home to the parent? And how will you again touch upon this in the next 3 days? So I believe there are a lot of organizations, institutes doing very good work in mindfulness today. And that's where they are able to kind of offer these. So either a school can do that, or they can identify an in-house person who seeks that undertaking, that training, and then is able to put it forth.
Correct. Or they could actually outsource a curriculum which can be customized to their requirement.
Absolutely. In my experience.
Amrita, does EduLearn
Yes,
Guru
Bela?
have a curriculum for...
You're saying something?
Yeah, does EduLearn Guru have a curriculum for mindfulness also?
I think I can answer that. I'm on the advisory board.
Tell me.
This topic is so frequent because this is something we've been discussing, Amrita, if you remember.
Correct. This is the need of the hour, and I think this should be there in every school, because it is not something which is incidental and can be passed off, but it is something which needs to be incorporated. Yes,
Great.
there is a curriculum and it can be customized to the school.
Great. That's nice. So there's another question. How do we inculcate mindfulness with respect to NEP? Neelu, can you answer that?
Sorry, how can we? I don't see that in the chat here.
It's in the question
and answer section.
Right. Just give me a minute, please. If I may just look there. How do you think mindfulness with the parents who come from an orthodox or difficult? So I won't say that's a challenge. I would say that is the main essence. When you're able to convert that parent and make them understand where this is, that's where it comes from. So this is not.
I think Neelu jumped to the second question.
Neelu,
I'm asking the first question. How do you inculcate mindfulness with respect to NEP?
When you say NEP, are you talking about the National Education Policy?
Yes.
2020 is what because NEP is an abbreviation for something else I know, which is also related to mindfulness. If you notice, the current NEP policy has some beautiful ideations, beautiful aspects which can change the face of education. I know it is in the planning mode right now, and when it comes to implementation, that's another talk altogether. But I know increasingly everyone, whether it's an educator in the classroom, an educator who's planning isolated, or these institutes are all coming together to build this into the into the fray. So education space is expanding today, where I'm sure NEP is going to touch that very, very strongly too.
True.
Coming to the next question of the importance to a parent who's orthodox or difficult, that's not just the challenge, that's the beauty. And that is, I think, where we'll all have to come together, because that one little workshop or one little training may not help. It's going to be a lot of conversations, and probably the parent will come around and join hands with you and probably lead it beautifully only when they're able to see that change in their own child. So somewhere, maybe when we continue working with the child, the change will come. And when you work with the parent, you open up these dialogues, I'm sure these changes will come. And it's not just one parent, right? It's the whole family. Even if we as educators need to involve mummy, papa, and grandparents, who are the immediate caregivers and caretakers, I don't think we should hesitate to do that. I know I've had multiple meetings over the years with people who've sat as a family with me to tell me, Miss, मैं हिंदी पढ़ाती हूँ, आप उनकी मम्मी को मत बताओ, मुझे आप बता दो. Like, that's how it goes. I do a lot of rhyme sessions. Papa does the physical. So it's everybody together. So open up these conversations, and I think that's where we'll be able to make a change.
Yes, I think the spillover happens.
Rhyme sessions. Papa does the physical. So it's everybody.
Neelu, we have a question on
Facebook. To the next question.
I can just take a Facebook question till then, Neelu. Somebody is asking, Milal,
Sure.
Milani is asking, how do you teach a second grade standard children about mindfulness?
Oh, you have a plethora of opportunities open in front of you because they are able to rationalize and they are able to beautifully, communicate back to you. So how do you begin this with a second grader? If this is a teacher who's asking, I'm assuming
Yes,
it's a teacher or maybe it's a parent.
I think it's a
Also,
teacher.
the idea would be to exactly do what I just touched upon. Open up the discussions, the conversations of I see, I think, and I wonder, and allow your child to come up with options and questions. Also, tell your child to take the lead in seeing a role play, then open up a discussion, and slowly this will happen. I would also suggest and recommend that involve peers with second graders. Very, very happily they respond, and they're able to come to more ideations when their peers are with them. So please do that and try the tips that we just spoke about.
I
Thank you,
really like
Neelu,
that.
for
I
addressing.
see,
Yes,
I
I
I
think,
think
think.
and I wonder. So, it's a very nice step-by-step progression.
Amrita, if I'll share this with you, I had undergone this training where we had to do that as a participant. And I realized I was jumping. Rather than seeing, observing, and stating what I see, I had jumped to what I thought.
Yeah.
And I quickly said, but I think this happened because I was rationalizing and trying to make predictions. Whereas the reality, when it opened up, I realized, oh, I could have waited and understood the whole picture. This is years back. And that's a huge learning. Imagine if we do these things with our children right now.
And all this is a practice also, na? It's not something which comes overnight for even us.
We have a question from Chetna Solanki. How can
Yes.
parents handle the situation as their child is dependent for studies? And also parents have to do lots of stuff. I agree, Chetna. Times today are so much more challenging. I completely agree with you. But somewhere we'll have to find the balance. So whatever works for you, Chetna, the idea is that if you can find even that little bit of 10-minute time or respite where you can do this with your child along with studies, being more mindful during study time. So, setting up that routine with your child and telling her that or him that this is time to study. Okay, let's take a break and let's reflect on what we just did. Do you think we did give our best? Opening up these conversations is where mindful studying, mindful time management might lead to a better structure with you. I agree. There's a lot that parents have to do today.
Yes.
I think there's a simple tip of even having a. So imagine a cake is there with candles on it, and breathe in and try and blow the cake candles out. Could try and do something like that as well at home.
Basically, net, if I summarize what is it that we have to do, the thought is that build it, foster it, nurture it. It cannot be left to the part where it will happen by the way and abhi nahi to 2 saal baad ho jayega. The younger you begin, that becomes their coping skill and that becomes a part of their personality. You'll find that your child is more compassionate, your child is more calmer. And we're not saying that we want our children to be totally very slow in their responses. That's not what we're saying. We're saying when the time is right, be mindful, be aware, at the same time do the best. So there's a current debate also on, Amrita Bela, you may be aware of this, that mindfulness is actually the opposite of multitasking. 20 things that you do at a time. I'm
Very
guilty
true.
of the same crime. I'm having a meeting here. I've put my video off and I have minimized and I'm working on a few mails, or probably I'm
My
answering
God.
a few things. And I realize what the person said has just not registered to me. And I say, oh,
Right.
sorry, come again. So I've missed that important bit. I think our next generation coming in should have that benefit. And we've done very well for ourselves. We're here today discussing mindfulness because we believe in it.
Yeah. But I think it is a skill which should be inculcated. There's one more question from Anju Dhawan. I think all of us are already working on mindfulness, but yes, we need to identify strategies and build on them.
So Anju, if you are a parent or, sorry, Bela, would you like to take that?
No, please continue. Yes.
Anju, if you are a parent or you're an educator, both ways, what works is take a pen, paper, take your laptop, whatever works for you, take your phone and put it in notes, write down all the things you feel which help in building mindfulness. You will find that the list is endless. So isn't this what we do when we are taking an important decision? We weigh the pros and the cons. It's nice to sometimes have things on paper. Maybe I think that way. You can make a graphic organizer, you can make a mind map and put your thoughts through. All your strategies will come into place, and you'll realize that very unknowingly, you're actually having a huge bank. Now knowingly, how will you add to this bank? How will you add to these experiences? And your answers will come from the children you are talking to. Probably your child will be able to give you a tip. Your children in the classroom will be able to give you more tips. But do not forget to have those sticky notes, those write-ups, those visible thoughts that are there. Because for a child, you need something tangible, which is why I'm talking about props, those emoticon cards that you could make, or maybe just, write something in a big lettering, put it up there and tell the child, let's go back to our bulletin and read what we did. Maybe just an illustration of something that you did, you know, blow your imaginary bubbles, pick up your imaginary sand and pass it to the next friend, feel it flowing out, but wait for it to go out completely. So that's being mindful, right?
Neelu, we have a question from Anjana. She says that sometimes a child is not ready to involve in activities. What can she do?
I'm assuming this is maybe a young child who is in the early years. How to increase our patience level with kids or sometimes.
This is in the chat box. I read it from
No,
there.
it's in the chat. It's
Okay.
in the chat, Neelu, if you're looking.
Yes. So I just read through the questions because all the questions are interrelated.
Yes, quite
Right.
overlapping.
So, yeah, when we talk about building our own patience, we are building our own selves. We are fostering the skill of being more patient. So, again, that's a challenge when you don't have time. So, how will you manage your time well? If it is important to manage and prioritize your workload that comes from office, isn't it important to put off your phone, put away your laptop, and give that time to your child and family also? Amrita called me last night and I said, I can't talk to you now. Why? I'm watching this beautiful serial on Netflix because that's my time. It's me time. If I don't do that, I know I'm going to be upset. I didn't do anything the whole day. So, first, as parents and educators, give time to yourself. Do your face pack, see your Netflix, read a book, go chat up with a friend from the balcony. I know we are maintaining social distancing. We'll say, do that for yourself, and you will yourself find that you're more calmer, right? Check your breathing. Very, very important. When we breathe fast, we realize that somewhere it's entering the body, and we are in that state of impatient being right now. At the same time, having said that, it's easier said than done, and you may have a long list to do, but with your child you'll have to be patient because you're modeling that behavior. So probably reminders work. Probably open up that conversation of, sweetheart, I told you this 10 minutes back, it's 5 minutes now, reminder, in 5 minutes would you please come for lunch again? Or we completed that activity, can we finish 20 minutes of this what we are doing and then go back again to what you want? You're opening up a dialogue. You're also, well, it's a barter system with your child, right? When your child reaches that time, you're not bribing the child or anything, but you're just taking that time out and, okay, 2 minutes more, then we get back to it. That is the only thing that will work eventually, because your children will get used to it. Mama, just 2 minutes please, or teacher, can we have 2 minutes more to have that last activity? Do it and build that time for that activity and build your patience per se. You will watch that your attention span is going higher. Your child is able to sit for a longer period, then start brooking independence. While you're doing this, may I move out here and come back in 5 minutes? Yes, I trust you'll finish it by the time I'll come. If not, I'm here to help you with it, right? At all times, being compassionate is very important. I hope I've answered the question,
Yes.
Bela or Amrita.
Yes. I like your communication, but you have to communicate with your child and come at a level of understanding, which is very important. I think that's very well said.
And the exchange and everything from the idea of love. You're doing it out of love, sweetheart. We need to study. Okay, so what is it that we need to do in a day? What is it that we can do at our own time? So please find your time.
We have Manoj Bhai asking your question. Welcome, Manoj Bhai. Thank you for coming on our show. So Manoj Bhai says, does mindfulness time need to be increased in order for attention span to go up? If yes, how much time needs to be allocated?
Manojji, I would say one thing over here. As you will start building mindfulness into your routine, you will yourself realize that your timing is going up. And it doesn't mean that you started by 10 minutes with your child, whether it's in a school or at home. It's not that then you have to continue and do it for half an hour. It's just that the practice enters your system and you have internalized how you will be reacting to certain things. So begin initially, build it through the day, maybe 2 or 3 times where you have the discussion, where it is, and you will yourself realize that it's now happening effortlessly, right? So per se, I wouldn't say a half an hour after every 1 hour to be allocated, or a 10-minute break after every time. You will yourself see that you've internalized the thought and you will talk to your learners, to your child in that same manner, right? So there's no quick short or sure short way of saying that this much time is particular to it. If you're doing it as a school, I would say definitely 15-20 minutes to help the teacher round it up in a beautiful way. That's important.
I think mindfulness should become a way of living. If anybody can do that, nothing like it.
Yes, Bela. We've got to work really hard. But as they
Yes.
say, whatever you focus on, whether it's your health, whether it's your plant, whether it's love in your household, whether it's in your teaching sessions, it grows when you nurture it and when you focus on it. That's the end all be all. Which is why my topic says mindfulness, policy to practice. We cannot leave it to intentional learning. If we are making a language policy, a discipline policy, a policy of how will you come and go, an arrival duty policy in a pre-primary school, right? We all have that. Education policy on safety. Why not a policy on being mindful? That how is it that we are going to inculcate this? Parent orientation, check. Teacher orientation, check. Regular PDs with the teachers, maybe a session plan that a teacher would like to be. So that's your checklist for you. Once that happens, that approach which you've created as a policy because you believe in it, it's a shared responsibility, that moves into your strategies and becomes an approach. It becomes a best practice. So what is a best practice? We educators talk about it. Amrita, Bela, we've taken ample sessions. ECA
Yes.
does regular sessions for best practices. That's one platform which is open to every educator. I know how many I have conducted. And why? Because that's something we believed in. We did it. We know it worked. And now it's time to share that
Pass
knowledge.
it on.
Exactly what we're doing on your show, ladies.
Yes, true. Bela, you want to ask the next question?
There's one question by Chetna Solanki. She said, some children are not ready to listen anything and keep annoying things. What to do to calm them? How can we adjust with that situation, as some children are super active? They even can't sit in one place. So activities for them to sit in one place.
Chetna, I would say that you're very blessed to have a child who's able to move around and do that. And children are that way. They cannot sit for a very long time and, at a place because that's kinesthetic learning for them, right? They're different kind of learners. Having said that, I understand the emotion and the thought with which you're asking. We do face it. I've faced it in my class also, where there are certain learners who cannot sit at all. So maybe what you're doing at that point in time is not so interesting for them. So how will you reach out to them to make it more interesting? That's one thought. Maybe our way needs to be altered. Maybe the child is that quick in picking it up and the ability is probably a little higher where the child is able to, I've done it and now give me something more. Or probably the concentration span yet needs to be worked on. So please identify what is it that works with that certain child and that group of learners. So maybe how do you engage that group which has already done that and have moved forth? That's your differential. Or probably how do I build in the concentration with these certain learners? You may not be able to do it by yourself, right? You will have to homeschool partnership conduct. That is what will need to be taken. You will have to speak to the parents and also, discuss this out with them. This is what I'm finding. Can we have these strategies where we work together? Is there anything that we can use as a common language in school and at home, which we can remind? We can try, but there's no sure short way that you'll have the child's attention. And rightfully so. With so many distractions there, especially at this point in time, it's a little difficult scenario. Yet where we are in school, we are able to manage it better. I hope I've answered the essence of your question.
I guess so, Neeru. Another lady called Rita Bose is asking, will introducing pranayam increase mindfulness?
Focusing on your breath. If that is what you're asking, that's a beautiful thought. And starting early. So in our, when we make the curriculum for PSPE or physical skills in school, schools no longer only look at regimented physical activities, right? We are all schools which have opened up our spaces. We are open to well-being tips. We are open to fitness challenges, right? Agility challenge, flexibility challenge, maybe a yoga time which you're doing with Nani, Dadi, or something like that. So when we do all that, that is where your focus on breathing is equally important. So if you're inculcating yoga and pranayama, whether you're doing it as a parent or you're doing it in your classroom, that's a beautiful way. That's a beautiful strategy.
Do we have any
There is one question I think we missed out on. Reshma Kumari says, how do we increase our patience level with children? Because we just lose our patience with children. So I think it's mindfulness for the parent also.
Yes.
I did touch upon that earlier, that once we start living, breathing what we believe in, and if we believe that we want to make that change, we want our child to benefit and see us at the same time, benefit ourselves, then it's time that the change came from within us. So I guess somewhere we'll have to work towards becoming more patient and also find the triggers that are making us uncomfortable. We are human too. So it's very easy for me to say and advise, nahi, aapko build karna padega patience. Kaise hoga? You know, there are some triggers, there are some things in your life which are creating that within you. So how is it that you're able to identify, minimize wherever possible, and yet build on your own patience levels? I've learned one trick though. As a very young parent, when I was young, I realized that I would get embarrassed very easily with what my child did. If she threw a tantrum, I was embarrassed. I was like, Kya kare? Why is she doing that? Very quickly, I realized, probably because I'm a reflective individual, that it's okay. She's having a moment where she wants to express in this manner. I'll go to her, wait with her. It's okay if the world is looking at me. So sometimes, please do not be embarrassed that, my patience level right now is low or whatever. We'll work on it. We'll work on it together. Probably your spouse or your teacher in the classroom or your child can become your advisor. I used to tell my child, why don't you remind me that, Mama, low voice, please. It's getting a little higher. That reminder helped. I would immediately smile. There were some days where I would be, I know that I'm going easily, but I learned to curtail that. So everything with unlearning and with time, I guess you'll build your patience. You'll find your own way.
I want to share something here, Neelu, what me and my brother Rocky have it when we get into an argumentative state or whatever, we just say the word called pause. And then we both pause for a moment and things become better after some time.
What a nice strategy.
Yeah.
Really, it's nice to just pause.
True. Bela, that works. And what
Yes.
works is every time, sometimes I feel not reacting works. In the heated
Yes.
exchange or whatever, it's always nice to,
Just
okay, I'll
pause.
speak a minute low. Because sometimes being the calmer one or being the silent one does not mean that you're in any way weaker. It only means that you've taken your time to think about it and then you'll answer.
Questions, let us see.
I think there is one more question. Nirja Khaturia asks, would it be possible to practice pranayama at 3 years of age, where in largely a child cannot sit at a place for more than 8 to 10 minutes?
So 8 to 10 minutes in itself is quite a good period of time if your child is able to do that. And slowly, if you start building in and building that practice and your child watches you doing that, your child may be able to just pick that up. And over time, when the child takes ownership that this is my coping skill, I like doing it every day, so I'm going to sit and do it, it's fine. They'll build that through. I've also come across schools. I've visited a lot of schools where I've given a training or, been a part of, where I've seen that I won't say a meditative practice, but a time to be with oneself. So everybody would leave everything. The teacher would say, okay, time up, everybody down. Let's take our time and just shut our eyes. She would just sit like that, close her eyes quietly. There would be someone watching, of course, over the learners. But the learners looked at the teachers, the children looked at her, and they also emulated the teacher. Then happened the fun. Some of them closed their eyes while others pinched, prodded. Somebody checking that nothing untoward is happening. But somewhere the children picked up that cue. And after some time, maybe a month or so down the line, when the teacher said, time for us to have time for ourselves, and she put her pen and stuff away, the learners also sat down very quietly and just watched, looked at each other, and just did that. And that's beautiful. So if this can be fostered, pranayam definitely can be fostered with your child.
I think modeling
Yes.
this behavior is very important.
As we said, it's a way of life.
So with this, we come to the end of our session today, Neelu. I would like to really thank you so much for taking out your time and being here with us. And all your valuable tips that you've given us about mindfulness will come to use. I'm sure the parents and teachers will have a lot of takeaway and learning from this session. So thank you once again, Neelu. Now, I would like to introduce our next week's speakers as well. We have Kamini Lakhani, the founder director of Psy Connections, a behavior specialist, RDI consultant and supervisor, director for RDI professional training India and Dubai. And her topic is going to be 10 things every teacher should know about autism in the classroom. The date is 16th September, 4 p.m. See you all next week. Bye-bye till then. So thank you, Neelu, once again.
And bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for being here,
Thank
everyone.
you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
My pleasure.
ABC
Thank
Show.
you. Bye-bye to everyone.
Bye, everyone.